Hi, I'm Mark,
And I'm Patricia Johnson.
and we've been married 15 and a half years and together for 16.
And we've authored 5 books. Our most recent title is Partners in Passion, which came out last year in 2014. And our next title is called Designer Relationships, and it will be coming soon, and it's available for pre-orders. So.
Through Amazon and all the usual channels. And I want to start out by saying that being married is hard enough. Writing 5 books together when you're a married couple and writing books about sexuality and relationships, I think maybe in particular, is a rare feat. And it really requires us to practice what we preach, because when you're collaborating in that way, your heart and soul, your ego, and everything is on the line. And so you've really got to have deep trust in one another.
So our first 3 books are based on Tantra. That's our background. And recently we've started moving into more generalized relationships and sexuality.
And we're not going to go into a big discussion about Tantra as a tradition, but the important point for our talk today is that in the Tantric tradition, there are some branches which practice a sexual ritual. And in that sexual ritual, the practitioners worship one another as embodiments of deities, as divine beings.
And what we strive to do in our work is to take this tantric concept, which actually comes from a culture that's so very different, is very ancient, and translate it so it's applicable to modern American life.
And what we like to say is that you have this concept within the context of a sexual ritual of worship. We think the way to apply that in contemporary life is to bring that sense of worship into every aspect of your relationship to the extent that you can, and really to revere and honor your partner.
So what we're talking about is cultivating the attitude of reverence.
And reverence is something that we think is sorely lacking in the world today. It's just the lack of reverence is embodied in the violence that we do to each other, and perhaps most dramatically right now in the violence that we're doing to the planet as a whole.
Moreover, I think in our culture, we're taught to look at our relationships as a zero-sum game, sometimes as a battle of the sexes sometimes, and it's all manifests with the idea that we find a partner in order to get our needs met.
How often do you hear that? I need this from you. I need you to take out the garbage. You know, I need.
Right, and if you think about what needs really are, there are basic needs: shelter, food, air, and water. So if we're asking a partner or saying, you're not giving me what I need, you're kind of telling them that he's denying me everything I need to exist, or my very way of living.
And if you think about it, if you tell your partner, I need you to do something, and then they do it, are you really going to be grateful? Are you really going to feel that they've done something because they truly care? Or are you going to feel that they're doing it maybe under a little bit of duress? We think that gratitude really comes from reframing needs and reframing them as wants or desires. Because once you say, I want this, or I would really love it if, or I desire something, first of all, there's room for negotiation. There's room for me to say, I can't really give that to you, but maybe, I can do something else. The second piece of it is that I'm then doing whatever it is to give her something through volition, not through duress. And that allows her to feel gratitude.
True gratitude. So we encourage you to think of it instead of what's in it for me or what can I get from my partner, but reframe your relationship as a mutual act of service and selflessness.
So we're not talking about servility, we're not talking about servitude, we're not talking about self-abnegation here. But we're really talking about reframing the way that we think about relationships as opposed to being a give and take, as being a give and give. And the reality is that most of the time in life, the more we give and the more selfless that we are, the more that we get in return. Now, of course, there are cases where that's not true, where people will take advantage of that. But in a trusting relationship, the more selfless we can be, the richer we will become.
So ultimately it becomes a give and give. It's a wonderful experience. So another topic we'd like to talk about is defining love. What's the definition of love? And we'll begin by looking at the opposite of love.
It's a very common thing all over the internet these days to see that the opposite of love is fear. You know, kind of more conventional idea is that the opposite of love is hate. But if you really start to think about these emotions or states of being, love, fear, hate, they're all really intense states of feeling. They can be all-consuming. We can be terrified and consumed by fear. We can be angry or hateful towards someone, and they occupy our thoughts a great deal. The same aspect is true with love. So there's an intensity that makes these emotions in some ways more neighboring emotions than opposites. And we really think that the opposite of love, especially in the context of long-term relationships, is indifference or taking for granted.
So what we'd like to do is introduce a definition that we really like.
Okay.
And hope that it resonates for you. And that is that love is profound interest. And I'll say that again. It comes from our teacher's teacher, Swami Gitananda, and it's love is profound interest.
And we just like to demonstrate a technique, a very basic and simple technique for keeping yourselves in love on an ongoing basis and recreating the experience of falling in love.
It's just, we call this practice eye gazing, and it comes from an ancient tantric tradition called Tratak. And I'm allowing my eye to rest on Mark's right eye.
And I'm allowing my eye to rest on her left eye. And this will produce a meditative state in very short order because you're giving your brain a timeout.
And if we're not careful, we go into a meditative state.
So we're not going to do that.
And so
we conclude with a bow.
Okay. And what it does, it's magical. Your emotional state is on your left, presents
It's revealed
itself.
more on the left side of the face in over 90% of people. And so when you do this eye-gazing practice and you're focusing attention on your partner's left, you're actually harmonizing your moods and bringing each other into balance. Now, this is a way of actively demonstrating profound interest to one another. It's also a way of diffusing conflict. We'll take a time out and eye gaze rather than speaking to one another when we have the presence of mind to do it.
And this is because when you are in quiet moments, when the other side of your brain is engaged, not your logic side, those are the moments when you're falling in love and when that magic can happen. So we'd like to conclude
by saying that trust and gratitude are reverence in action.
Thank you
Thanks
very
much.